Hey, welcome back. Here is the video lecture materials for the Learning Module 2, Introduction to Understanding ORM, Online Reputation Management for short. ORM Fundamentals. Again, it stands for Online Reputation Management, and some things that are found in the book are defined as it's about getting involved with social networks, monitoring those networks closely and actively, and responding quickly to breaking news or crisis. So basically what that is articulating for you is the two approaches to strategic planning and public relations. We've got reactive and proactive. So proactive would be getting involved with the social networks themselves and monitoring those networks. And then the reactive part would be responding quickly to breaking news or crises. Basically, it all boils down to getting found online. You want to be able, when someone searches for your organization or searches for your product or services, you want the most favorable, attractive results possible. Not a bunch of garbage that you've left around on your accounts or your website, not a bunch of bad reviews. And this course is all about getting the right stuff found online. So same, we've got two columns here, online reputation management. The book talks about claiming your brand, basically setting up your accounts so that they have all verified accounts, they're all identifiable, posting quality information and or entertaining content, monitoring the networks as we just talked about, and then responding warmly to visitors. I'll throw out the question now before we kind of get to that section, but visitors include haters. Just food for thought. But I want you to understand that while those things are the same, on the second part of the slide you see no two people or brands are exactly alike. So therefore there is no single cookie cutter approach to online reputation management or digital public relations. Everyone, every organization is going to be slightly different, and you're going to learn more as the course unfolds. I boil the things that we just talked about into what I call the Holy Trinity. I like to make sense of things that makes it easy for me to comprehend and kind of catalog things. And I came up with these three elements a long time ago, long time before I ever started teaching anyone else and other than my direct interns and the people who worked with me and for me. And I throw these things into buckets. The first bucket is listening and engagement, and you're going to learn a whole lot about listening, why it's important. We also call it monitoring, but it's basically listening to what is being said to and about you online, whether that's your brand or you're an entertainer you're representing, it doesn't matter. And then engagement, what does it mean to engage, to talk back in the spaces, to respond to people who love you and people who hate you alike. Then the second thing that we do is we publish content. We speak in the spaces, and whether that's through video or through a funny meme or some highly produced book, maybe we want to put together an ebook that we want to share, or a video series, whatever. Content is all about speaking and publishing in the space. Measurement and analysis is the third thing that we do, and these things I should number these because you really shouldn't do them out of order, but once you get into the habit of things, it's definitely a cycle. Then we measure and analyze. There's all kinds of things that you can measure. You can measure YouTube views, the videos that you're watching. I'm going to count up the video views, where exactly you stopped watching, those kinds of things. Everything that can be counted, likes, retweets on Twitter, shares of our content, all of those things these things can be counted. But then the next step is analyzing them, making decisions based on that information. And that's what the core of this course is all about. The book may not be exactly broken down in this way, but it all should make sense as we progress through the course. Digital channels. Digital versus social. You're going to get right into that with something we call the digital media audit. And I want you to think about digital versus social in a really simplistic way. If you Googled that, I should have done this, but I didn't. I don't know how many results you would get in defining digital versus social, but simply look at it this way. Digital is a one-way vehicle. That would be your website, that would be your mobile app, that would be primarily email marketing. It's pushing out a message to the masses where they don't really get the opportunity to talk back to you in a public way. Social, on the other hand, is just that. It's a social network. So if it's defined as a social network like Facebook, you're fans and friends with people, you get to speak back, you get to talk back in a very public way, and it becomes a two-way conversation. So there's a very simplistic definition for you for digital versus social. Digital democratization, that's a mouthful. What is it and why is it important? The reason that this course exists is because as a result of what we call the digital democracy. It's all of a sudden we had fans of our product or users of our product or publics in general that used to have very limited means of speaking back to us or saying anything about us that was of any importance or of any value at all into a democratic web where anyone can be a journalist, anyone can be a blogger, anyone can be a YouTube fan, or I'm sorry, a YouTube star. That is the digital democratization, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples. So I want you to consider the United Breaks Guitars case, and I want you to pause this. It's an oldie, but it's a goodie. It's back, I believe it's from 2009. So I want you to pause this video and I want you to go to YouTube and I want you to search for United Breaks Guitars by Dave Carroll. I do want to caution you though, it does contain some what I would call culturally insensitive images. So be sure that you're prepared for that. So pause that and then come back. Excuse me. Basically the case breaks down as follows. In March 2008, this musician from Nova Scotia and his band, the Sons of Maxwell, traveled on United Airlines. What happened unfolded in a very public way and illustrates the concept of the democratic web in no other way that I can think of. He basically he witnessed his guitar being thrown around and then basically broken while he watched. And he tried to address the problem both on the ground and then via phone. And then after 9 months, he just gave up. And he created a music video. And he put it on the iTunes Music Store. And it made money. And it also cost United a lot of public relations perception value. And it also, according to some reports, cost him $180 million in share value. This is kind of disputed online. There's no real way to prove that, but we all know United has its share of scandals, and they still don't quite know how to handle the democratic web, in my opinion. Here's the tweet we call the tweet heard round the globe. So if you haven't seen the movie about Captain Sullenberger and seen, I'm sure you were too young to have witnessed this historic landing on the Hudson where he saved many people due to his quick thinking. But the image that you're looking at here that was picked up by all major news outlets, it wasn't instantaneous because back then, frankly, the journalism didn't understand this concept of citizen journalism. But this was a Twitter picture taken from basically the banks of the Hudson, and we call it the tweet heard around the world because it really rang the bell for the advent of citizen journalism and what we know now as the 24/7, 365 news cycle. So what makes some companies win and some fail at digital? We're going to take a look at that really briefly. So here's my top 5. Again, after years and years of doing this, I kind of distill things down into, kind of some buckets. So they fail to do 5 things, not necessarily in this order. They fail to connect the digital strategy to the overall business or communication strategy. That is why you need to be completely familiar with the GHOST model and the way that we handle strategic planning in public relations right off the bat. We need to connect what we're doing here with the overall strategy, or we're doing it wrong. Number 2, they fail to correctly identify and target publics with appropriate tactics. So if you're targeting an older generation and your idea is to establish a Snapchat account because Snapchat is the latest, greatest thing, although adoption of Snapchat among older generations is gradually increasing, you need to understand that you need to know your target public before you identify appropriate tactics. They fail to listen to and engage with target publics as a relationship building tactic. When people talk to you and about you, you need to listen. And number 2, you need to respond. Number 4, we fail to construct appropriate context for messaging. That's where you see a lot of fails. #fail. When companies say something that's tone deaf, what we call tone deaf, or off color, or completely off the mark. I'm going to throw out the Kendall Jenner Pepsi commercial right there. They fail to understand who they're talking to and what the context should be. And number 5, they fail to interpret, report, and make fact-based decisions and strategic correction. That measurement and analysis piece. So one thing that you need to understand is, as a tool, is the book calls it some suggested steps for discovering yourself or your brand online. Basically, it's very simplistic language. Perform Google searches for various combinations of your name and brand name. Perform Google searches for your industry. And review all of your social and digital accounts for consistency. Is your brand really shining through? And we call it a digital audit. And you're going to do one this week. I know you're excited. So the other thing that we need to talk about in this session is what the trend. When a topic trends, it ranks more highly on Google. It gets retweeted much more often, and it becomes a hot search term on Facebook. So it is in a brand's best interest to listen to and identify things that are trending. And that gets us to memes. And so I'm hoping you're familiar with this one. I would play this video, but it's so annoying. I can't stand it. How about that? The Cash Me Outside girl, she was a viral meme for a while. A meme, in its definition, is a snippet of cultural information that spreads person to person until it enters the general consciousness. It goes straight into our brains, in other words. Let me give you some examples, and you can Google these. Hotline Bling, the T-Mobile Super Bowl ad from, I think 2 years ago. The Drake, he had so many memes based on his cool little commercial. And then the Damn Daniel series, you can Google that. Adele's Hello, it's still a meme. You hear that, the few tinkly notes on the piano, and then hello, and we all know what's happening. And it doesn't matter what language you speak. I've taught this course to predominantly Spanish-speaking individuals, and it doesn't matter. This crosses cultural boundaries. And the Ice Bucket Challenge, the Harlem Shake memes, those kinds of things kind of just bypass our rational thinking and go straight to the general consciousness. So how do you take advantage of a meme? So all this listening to trends and trend watching, what do we do with that information? A meme is, as we said, is a specific kind of trending topic. Memes are an extremely viral way to market a brand or idea, but they can also spread negative information about that brand or idea just as quickly. So my advice, before you go wild connecting with the next hot meme, keep in mind that once you release one out into the wild, you can't take it back. And you can't control what else other people do with it. So it can be turned around on you where it harms your brand, or it causes you to be the subject of ridicule. So let's talk about how ideas travel in social media. Trend jacking and news jacking is what we call it, and it is an extremely viral way to market a brand or idea. But as I said, they can also spread negative information about that brand or idea just as quickly. So you need to do your research. I can't say that enough. Research, research, research. So here are some examples of brands, and again, you'll have to, unfortunately this is not clickable, but you'll have to explore on your own. Here's some examples of fails. The 9/11 hashtag never forget. A lot of brands weigh in on that to their peril when it becomes the anniversary for 9/11. AT&T in 2013 made that mistake. DiGiorno Pizza in 2014, they joined the hashtag Why I Stayed, which is why it was about domestic abuse, and they completely stepped in it by trying to sell pizza. Miracle Mattress in 2016, Google that one. That's a very interesting way to not trend jack. So the reality is, the one kind of, again, tweet heard around the world, at least the advertising, marketing, and public relations world, you can still dunk in the dark. That was a Super Bowl that was held in the Superdome where the power went out, and Oreo made history tweeting you could still dunk in the dark. But the reality is that unless you have the manpower to be watching internet trends all day, the critical eye to know what stories to latch onto, and the ability to quickly create really great content that can connect you with those trends, then trend jacking like Oreo is best left alone. So my this is another 5 for you. 5 questions to ask. Do we have something meaningful to contribute to this conversation? Or are we just trying to get noticed? Does it fit with our brand tone persona, which should fit with our mission and vision? Again, that ghost model and understanding we got to connect digital to the big picture. Who could we possibly, or who could possibly be offended by what we are about to say? And you need to ask that question. Who are we going to offend? How can it be taken the wrong way? And finally, don't do anything unless you've got a plan for backlash. So again, my top 5, don't fail. Always do the 5 things that I outlined earlier. Connect the digital strategy to the overall strategy, etc., etc., etc. Make sure you're doing all of these things so that you don't fail at digital. So final words about the ghost model of public relations. You need to make sure it's like aligning your wheels and your tires for your car to run smoothly. Strategy and tactics must align with the goals and objectives of the organization. There is no way to avoid that. And the 2 approaches to strategic planning, as I mentioned earlier, they're reactive and proactive. And online good reputation management, online or otherwise, is about both of those. Being prepared for crisis always being in issues management versus crisis management. So my question to end with: do you remember the difference between a PR strategy and a tactic? If you do not, I put some helper materials in Blackboard. You need to make sure that you are addressing that weakness. Talk to me. Pull out your old textbook, get out your old materials, and get ready to apply those in the digital class. Let me end with a word about transparency. And I'm going to bring in a controversial topic. This does not mean that I have a personal opinion about Roseanne Barr, but she illustrates the textbook concept of today's publics demand transparency from organizations, meaning we don't want to be fooled. We want to make sure that we understand what's happening with the P&L, or people go to prison. We want to make sure if mistakes are made that people are sorry and what's been being done to address the issue. We want that transparency from organizations. But if you are an individual working for that organization, or if you are an individual celebrity in your own right, say you're an entertainer or a celebrity like Kim Kardashian, don't confuse authenticity with transparency. And again, Roseanne Barr, she is a TV persona, she's a TV mom. Now she's known both for her outrageous views as a comedian and as a TV personality. However, when she begins to have what we perceive as racist opinions on Twitter, on her personal account, then she's moved from being authentic to her true self with being transparent, and that's not okay. We don't really want to know that if she is in fact a racist person. We really could have her keep that to herself. So there you go. That is concludes the learning module lecture number 2.